Callie, Finn, listen, some news has come out in the WNBA that's a little upsetting, but it's also a lot of news or some information that we have to kind of decipher through. It's not clear, we don't have all the details, but there have been some allegations that have come down in the Seattle Storm for that team. The Chicago Sun-Times, Annie from the Chicago Sun-Times broke that news over the weekend. The Storm coaching staff is under investigation for alleged player mistreatment. A WNBA source has told the Sun-Times a law firm hired by the team is looking into accusations of alleged harassment and bullying tied to on-court, issues. And then confirming that report was Christian Braswell of Circling Seattle Sports, and he's saying per multiple sources, the WNBPA, which is the Players Union, President Nneka Ogwumike, was excluded from players-only meetings due to a fear of partiality to the coaching staff. Skylar Diggins-Smith led several outbursts laced with vulgarity directed at teammates. And that's what his sourcing was telling him. So his story came out shortly after Annie's, and here we are. So that kind of got the Twitter streets talking, right? And there was some additional reporting. ESPN later confirmed some of the reporting. And I'm saying some for a reason, because right now there's just a lot of things being thrown around. And I think it's important that we at least lay out what we know to be true. So what is confirmed is that a law firm was hired by the Seattle Storm to conduct an investigation. We know that that's happened. I'm saying that because multiple outlets have reported and confirmed that, right? So there is some sort of investigation going on. I believe the players union as well as the team, I don't think they've provided really any further comments to these reports. So we just have what that reporting is and the fact that the team is confirming that the investigation is happening, right? There's some bullying rumors, I guess, that are being investigated based on the reporting. We know it's some reports around the coaching staff. So that would be Noelle Quinn. We've heard Skylar Diggins' name mentioned, obviously, in Christian's reporting, and Nneka being the president of the Players Union. We also saw that apparently she was excluded from meetings. That's the reporting. So that's sort of, I think, the high level of the things that we know to be true. These are some of the major players that are involved in this story. Jewel Lloyd, she wasn't specified in the reporting, but there have been some other tweets and things from other media members who have implicated that she could have been upset about certain things. But again, some of that, we haven't seen multiple reports about that, so we don't really know what to digest, and I don't want to sit here and go through all the rumors and, perpetuate them. But the point is that these are serious allegations, and we'll have to wait to find out more about what's going on with the Seattle Storm. So, Callie, when you first heard this news, what did you think?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I love that you pointed out, like, these are serious allegations. As a lawyer, you know that if a law firm is involved, it's not just he said, she said, like, there's something that needs to be looked into. So that was my first thought. I will say also, I know that you noted that the coaching staff would be Noelle Quinn, but obviously it wouldn't just be her, it would be her assistants. This past season, that was former WNBA player Ebony Hoffman. There was a assistant coach who left to become a G League coach, Zach Guthrie. There's another assistant, Pokey Chapman, Perry Huang. So it's not just Noelle Quinn. I haven't seen a lot of people talk about the fact that, like, the reports say coaching staff, not just
That's true.
Noelle Quinn.
That's a good point.
So I do think that that's notable and interesting. Obviously, I'm not a reporter like based in Seattle. I'm not familiar with this staff very much, but like that's something that I would think is going to be important. I also think just at face value, my immediate reaction was, I know you mentioned some of the players involved. Skylar Diggins-Smith is someone who has just been through a lot in the league. So to see that she is on a team with another kind of issue. I mean, I think back to when she was with the mercury and then had her second child, and mentioned that her pregnancy benefits were being withheld. And we learned a lot of that through social media posts from her. Like there wasn't a lot of clear reporting. It was just like one day, all these Instagram stories and tweets and things like that, like her saying, I can't be the villain anymore. And now, like, here we are, like you mentioned, there's just so much information going on. And it's almost like, what is her role in this? Which again, we never want to speculate, but I just do think,
Right.
I mean,
And I
that was
just,
my,
I'm sorry, I don't want you to lose your thought, but you mentioned Skylar and her using social media in the past. And we don't know if it's about this lawsuit, but she's also taken again what appears, or at least that's how people are interpreting it, to be using social media again. She put up in her Instagram story, "Don't tell a lie on me." And then in addition, "I won't tell the truth about you."
about
So
you.
like, don't tell a
Yeah.
lie on me and I won't tell the truth about you. She had that in her
Yeah.
Instagram story.
Yeah, which is, I mean, and that wasn't the only thing. She responded to a post from Tina Thompson, a former WNBA player, who had posted like a quote about not using your assumed power for et cetera things. And she seemed to agree. And then I guess like deleted her interaction with it. But like things like that are typically kind of how we, as people who engage with the WNBA,
Right.
get a lot of like, I don't know, color from situations like this. Like you normally don't get a lot of information until later. And I do think too, a lot of times when covering lawsuits, if it's like an individual player like suing an entity, like a team or the league, you will get a lot of information from that player's representation because they want the court of public opinion on their side. But in a case like this, if it's the team that's hired the law firm, we're not going to get that information. Like this is internal. So I think that that's another part of this that makes things pretty interesting. And I do think I mean, with free agency not too far around the corner, this kind of throws a wrench into things and it's something to follow. But I really like that you emphasize how important it is that there are so many things that we don't know and that we just kind of need to stay focused on the things that we have seen confirmed multiple times.
Right. And you mentioned the law firm being hired because as someone who used to conduct investigations, those are private. So like, even if like you go and file a complaint at a company, right? You don't necessarily know what the findings were of the investigation, even if you filed the report. It's a private it's private, and that's to protect the confidentiality of people who participate in the fact finding. And so we may never know what comes of this investigation. We also may not ever find out what the full details around like what initiated it. It's unclear whether any kind of EEOC claim has been filed, but those are private. So we also wouldn't know that. That's not like a lawsuit and a litigation. And you can also go to the EEOC without filing a formal complaint. But those, in my experience, could sometimes be things too that trigger, a company saying we want to do an investigation. But what I will say is that usually when a law firm reaches out, because most entities when a company reaches out, not a law firm, but when a company usually reaches out to a law firm, it's a serious matter. And the league and the league and the teams are a little different because major companies, major organizations, I'm not saying that they're not major, but I mean in terms of having like lawyers on staff and having like a legal department, all those things. For like smaller HR type claims, things like that, a lot of times they will have like an EEO person, investigator like on site. And that's usually like someone in HR that focuses on like investigations, right? But when they rise to a certain level, or when sometimes the allegations are against more like senior management or things like that, that's usually when a law firm is called in, because that's usually the kind of investigations that I conducted. So now sometimes some places just aren't equipped to do their own internal investigation, so we don't know. But when an entity takes the steps to get a law firm and to get a third party, because from covering the Aces that they've had investigations, they didn't always reach outside for a law firm. Like the league conducted its investigation internally. So it doesn't always have to be that a law firm gets brought into it. So when they do, it's usually serious allegations.
100%.
Well, there's obviously going to be more on this, but I think, Callie, I know you're so big on like reporting and information being accurate. And I just think it's really important because I've seen so many things on X and social media that just aren't accurate, for people to really just wait for the information to unfold and not make assumptions about what has come out so far, and understand what's come out, like to check to see if other sources have confirmed it and that kind of thing. Is there any other advice as someone who reports and breaks news, that for people who are reading and trying to stay up to date on this, that you would give?
Yeah, well, I'll say for one, I love media literacy. This trophy back here, you might think it's for sports, but it's actually a media literacy trophy that I got in my graduate program. And I do think that one of the most important things in a situation like this is like making sure to identify what you're consuming. There's all different types of content, and it's not that any of these types of content are like bad or wrong. It's just like you want to be aware of what is what. So I think that when you are looking at like traditional journalism, a lot of these like traditional outlets are bound by certain journalistic standards that some media members are not. So it's like if you're seeing a tweet about a situation, maybe don't take that as fact. Like just take it with a grain of salt, and then consider also. I mean, journalistic sourcing is a very delicate thing. When you're reporting things as a reporter, you kind of go and you one is you can speak to somebody and they might not want to talk to you on the record. So they might say, hey, like, I'll tell you this, but you can't report it, or you can only report it anonymously, or you can only report it on background. And even when you do have that information, and if you find a way to report it, you still have to like double, triple check. A big part of reporting is also, once you have something that you can print or publish, going to the other side, getting two sides of a situation. But not all outlets need to do that or feel obligated to do that. So then maybe you just only get one side of the story. And so things like that happen all the time in journalism. I mean, you and I were talking the other night just about so many examples and reporting of when you only get one side of the story, and then you see kind of down the line where the information was coming from. So that's what I would say to keep in mind. Just like think about, journalism versus content and versus online conversation and discourse. All of those things are important. All those things shape the way that we look at certain situations, but they shouldn't all be weighed the same way. And so that's my best advice. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it does. And look, obviously, I'm sure there will be more on this, but we never want to hear about bullying or any kinds of allegations like this in the W. So I hope from the investigation they can get to the bottom of it, and if there is something to be resolved, resolve it, because we want to keep the W a safe place. But we will definitely stay on top of this in terms of what comes out, and if it requires further discussion, we will definitely be here to do that. But for now, this is all we have. So Callie, thank you for joining me. More to come.